The following may contain language which will be offensive to some people and inappropriate for children. Still here? Then pour your favorite beverage and let's get this fucking show started.
Forum, assemble. You are watching Fantastic Forum, the premier show about comic books and your live weekly conversation about entertainment and geek culture. We are the Fantastic Forum, coming to you live and direct from the Hall of F. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, as the case may be, depending on where you are in the world. And if you're not, you should stick with us. We'll help you take it up a notch. You have the usual suspects in the building. First, he is a riddle inside of an enigma trapped in Chinese finger cuffs. You don't know him. You love him anyway. He's our silent assassin, Jay.
Hey, what's up?
Indeed. Next, he's the backbone, the pillar, the strength of Fantastic Forum, our nigh invulnerable brawler and resident strongman, Moses Magnum.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
We're not talking about the Elvis movie today, are we?
I don't.
Do you want to talk about Elvis?
What? Look, was he in a comic? No.
It was a comic book movie.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Because he read comics in it?
He read comics in it. The way the movie was executed, the story, like it's essentially, it's like reading Shazam comics #1, where the Shazam the Wizard is telling you Billy Batson's origin story. Like the narration is almost panel for panel that showcase DC Showcase comic.
Okay, wait, we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it.
Don't
My
laugh
name's
at
Lawrence
me,
Young. Huh?
Don't laugh at me.
Hey, I'm doing my best. They call me Mayor Young. Welcome to Fantastic Forum. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking to you all about a bevy of comics, including Young Justice Targets, Do a Powerbomb, and The Panic. So we got all of that going on today, and of course, whatever else it is that you all want to talk about. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we thank Mr. Scott Rubin, because without him, this entire thing would not have happened. So thank you, Scott Rubin. I hope you're doing well. Well, look, actually, I saw Scott Rubin. He is doing well. So glad that you're doing well, friend, and hope to see him and talk with him again real soon. But yeah, and we also want to make sure that you all know how it is you can get down with Fantastic Forum. So we'll tell you how to do that now. Why not? Let's do it.
Want to get in on the action? Call Fantastic Forum on Skype and join the fun. Too shy to call in? That's okay. You can join the Discord chat room available at
fantasticforum.live.
Join the party. You know you want to.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, definitely. Huh?
I forgot Oz isn't coming today.
Oh yeah, no Oz today, unfortunately. But shout out to Oz. He'll be back with us hopefully next week. Maybe, who knows? Depending on what he's doing, maybe he'll be able to check us out in chat or something. I hope so. It'd be nice. But either way, we'll get with Oz again soon. But yeah, look, if you want to be a coveted member, like the 4th member slot on Fantastic Forum, you can do it. Jump to fantasticforum.live and you can jump into the chat or call into the show. We will put you on. If you're going to call in, we'd appreciate it if at the very least you have an avatar. don't just be like a little blank circle if you can help it. You know what I'm saying? Put a picture in there if you're not going to jump on video. So,
So fucking
but yeah.
lame.
The people calling into the show, you're right, Jay. Lame.
Nah, Elvis. Elvis is lame.
What? That Elvis is lame in general, or the Elvis movie specifically? Like, what are we talking about? Jay's like, let me drink. He's like, you know what? Listen, why don't you just marinate with that comment for a little bit? Elvis, lame.
No, I'm just upset. It
Why?
was like the #1 movie this weekend.
It was tied with Maverick.
Yeah, but I don't give a
Why are you?
You didn't want it to be #1? or did you want something else to be number one?
I wanted something else to be number one.
What
I wanted
did
the
you
black
want?
phone to be number one.
Oh,
The black phone.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's something Larry needs to watch.
Nah.
But see, I didn't even know that existed yet, like till like a month ago, and then I didn't know it came out this weekend. And I think Black Phone made like $3, right?
What?
Black Phone only made like $3.
No, it was number 4.
Oh, okay.
It pulled in 23 million.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was so good.
Was it any good?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I jumped out of my seat like twice.
Are you just saying that, or did you actually?
Can you reenact you jumping out of your seat real quick?
No.
Oh,
I would, but
there he
No,
goes. He did it.
There it goes. That's Jojo Bad. He's like, ah! Wait, so that joint is like, it takes place like in the 70s or something, right? So like they're they're actually like rotary phones and stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
That is scary. I agree. No cell service. I'm terrified already. I'm good. It's like you just out and you get your flat tire or something, and you're just like
AAA was
Guess
just
I'm dead.
1A back then.
Wait, what'd you say, Bo?
AAA was just 1A back then. Yeah.
1A. You had to hope that they drove by.
Yeah. And then if the guy had overalls and no shirt, you knew you were fucked.
Good Samaritans just passing by, like, we'll call when we get home.
So he's got overalls and a white t-shirt, but the white t-shirt's dirty and it's not oil from an engine. And I'm black.
Oh, jeez, man. So was the story any good, Jay?
No, it's amazing. Like, simple but amazing. So it's basically this kid gets kidnapped and put into a basement that has a black phone in it. And so the killer's other victims are calling him through the phone to give him advice.
So it's like ghosts?
Yeah.
Being like, hey, man, you might want to try this. Like, it didn't work for me, but it might work for you.
Well, they put things in motion.
Okay.
And they also warn him about like some of the traps.
Got you. Man, okay. That it sounds interesting, if nothing else.
It was good. Like,
Hey, you never seen the trailer, Larry?
I mean, I saw the trailer, like I think maybe I saw a teaser. I didn't know what was happening. I was just like, I was like, I really thought it was like, I didn't even know it was in the 70s, the trailer that I saw. I was just like, oh, I guess, this is like millennial person realizing that all, like, some phones are landlines. I don't know.
And it's a horror story.
Right, absolutely. I'm like, I get it. Like, if I didn't know myself, I think it would scare me too. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why does it keep making this noise every time I pick it up? It's like, that's called a dial tone. It's a thing that phones used to do. Huh?
976. I don't know that area code. Well, Elvis was a superhero movie, and you don't believe me, but it is. It's the way it's made and crafted is like it's executed like a superhero movie. Even he was a huge fan of Captain Marvel Jr. Elvis.
Elvis was?
Yeah, and that's why that cape, that costume he had later in his career with the capes and all those were based
that makes sense
on his fandom. And once he could do whatever he wanted, he's like, I'm gonna dress like this, But it goes even further. Like they actually spend, I think, maybe about a good 25 minutes on how much of a fan of Captain Marvel he was and how much that fueled his entire career. You know?
Are you serious?
Yeah, like his whole motivation to really like his dream was to take his family as a kid out of poverty and to the rock of eternity. Even the guy that took advantage of him is like, he says like that's the go-to line for them to like let's do this. It's like to the rock of eternity. Yeah. And I'm like, man, it's like I can't wait till he fights fucking Black Adam. Elvis versus Black Adam. Because like, hey, look, there's a precedent for that, man. There's connections because The Rock, big Elvis guy. You can tell by his as soon as he started getting like he had the flashy shirts, the sideburns, the glasses, and Valentine's Day 2002, he's covered Heartbreak Hotel right on Raw. You know?
Is that actually when that happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then I think it was 2002. And they even played the trailer for Black Adam right before Elvis. So I think I want to see Elvis versus Black Adam. I think they could go head to head.
Interesting. Okay. I'm not mad at it. I'll allow it.
Yeah. I'm gonna start writing Elvis fan fiction where he, he gets the Shazam powers.
Oh, see, Mo's out here trying to dupe us. He says he's got to start writing Elvis fan fiction. Come on, you mean continue?
But the movie itself is good. There's a lot of stuff that I mean, you're seeing it through the eyes of the villain, the movie. So it's his perception. He's telling you how that went down, but you're watching how it really went down. But you see him twisting the events to his benefit, and yeah, no, it was a good movie. The soundtrack was good. And they spent a lot of time with him and the Black community where he grew up in, because even during the Civil Rights movement, they didn't let him express himself how he wanted to, even though he was feeling what was going on. But fucking Captain was it Colonel Tom Parker? He's a fucking dude from like Austria or some shit. Like, it doesn't affect us. Yeah. And I was like, hey, yeah, it does. It affects everybody. Yeah. And thank you. And so there's a lot of like, I'm like, yeah, well, it was a good experience watching that. If there would have been a black telephone in it, I would have.
Elvis wasn't racist?
No, he wasn't. And you think he would be, but even like his first Jay's muted.
Oh, were you supposed to be? Were you saying something, Jay?
I thought he was.
Yeah, sorry. I was saying there are conflicting stories.
Yeah.
So I heard he was a racist, but I was looking up. I was doing independent research, and I did not get a clear answer. But yeah, some people say no, he wasn't. Some people say yeah, he was. I don't have a definitive answer on it. I know the first person I heard it from, I loved and respected. So it would take like evidence for me to, flip on that. But until I get that,
okay.
I'm honestly not a huge fan of his music anyway.
Oh.
So him being a racist doesn't affect me.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm not big on his music.
The movie itself, I think, is based on Colonel Tom's book, the guy that swindled him. And I don't know how true it is to the book, but if it's based on the book paints it as if Elvis wasn't. But the Colonel Tom didn't let him express his dissent during the civil rights movement and stuff, because it shows him being friends with like B.B. King, and then they show him his time in the black neighborhood growing up, and how I knew he took a lot of stuff from black music, as a lot of white artists did back then, and I always had to a certain degree of conflict of it, but after a while, how much of it is that, like his basis is that, his instruction is that, and then he does his own thing. You know, the same could be said about the Beatles, you know, and the Rolling Stones, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very yeah, you know, so I was always conflicted with that, but yeah, according to this movie, he wasn't. And
It's interesting though, because it seems like it should be one of those things where, you know, it would, you would see him as famous as Elvis was,
yeah,
people would just know, where it was just
yeah,
because like all it is like he would, like, it's not like he could go anywhere and just people don't notice.
yeah.
So it's like, how did he treat the black people when
And
he
that's
was
the
out with
thing.
with black people?
One of the reasons that he had the whole problem, like getting jailed and stuff,
Hmm.
was because he was the anti-segregation, or the segregationists rather, were
Hmm.
manipulating Colonel Tom and said, "Hey, you can't let them be wiggling like that. That's what colors do." They didn't call them colors, but I'm gonna say colors
Mm.
for the show. But but that's what they do, and we don't want our white girls liking that, you know. And then he had to kind of stifle his dancing and stuff, and you know, some of the songs, like he would sing, he would mix country with rhythm and blues, which was what, like, to them, the segregationists, they saw as integration, you know, because it's the
Mm.
two cultures mingling musically, and everybody's liking it, the black people at the
Mm.
time and the white people at the time, and they were going to the same concerts because he would play the same concerts and let both of them in. They
Hmm.
just, the security would separate them, you know,
Mm.
and shit like that. So it's a movie. I don't know how much of it is true, but
Right.
you know, to me, it cleared up some questions I had of that specific time in Elvis's life. You know,
Interesting.
yeah,
You
Um.
know, it is weird. Like you say, we should know how, like, if he was racist or not. And you know, you bring up the Beatles, and I've actually seen footage of them like not being racist.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, they toured the world. The Beatles got to tour the world and stuff. Elvis didn't. Elvis got locked into a shitty contract in Vegas by mob bosses. So he spent the last of his career just not be able to leave, just drugged up too. You know, so a lot of stuff you know, he could have done, he didn't do. You know, or been seen out in public, he didn't. You know, he just became a recluse in a sense.
So let's hit up the chat real quick. Tiger
Hmm.
Claw says, I didn't know Moses was in the Elvis. Then again, if Elvis didn't exist, you wouldn't have heavy metal.
Anybody that's ever seen me like do my hair and wear glasses knows I'm into Elvis. Yeah, I love Dice. Dice is an Elvis dude. You could tell straight up he's an Elvis dude. Like
Hmm.
the showmanship, the you know, the style. Like you don't have to say a word, but you're noticed because of the way you dress. That's me to a T. Not just the music, it's the personality. You know, I'm a big proponent to any kind of message you want to give. It's not just the message, it's the personality behind it that really makes cements it in people's brains. Yeah.
Tiger Claw says, you guys seen the other movies like Lightyear?
I haven't
I
seen
did.
Lightyear. What'd you think of Lightyear, Trey?
It was fine. It's like
That
it
sounded like you
didn't.
didn't like it.
No, I did, but it. I liked it, but I recognize that it doesn't need to exist.
Okay,
Is it better
that's fair.
than the animated series?
I didn't watch the animated
Uh,
series. Um, I don't know what I was doing at the time. Like,
you're
I
probably
think
in the
that might have
Navy.
been like Navy times, which
Yeah.
was harder for me to watch stuff. But yeah, I never actually ended up watching that. Oz says, what to see this weekend? The King of Rock and Roll or Dude Talking on the Phone? I mean, I don't like Elvis. Also, the phone is scary.
That's the
Uh,
title of this episode. The phone is scary.
There it is.
Tiger Claw says Elvis was the only person who was able to get away with Pink. And I
I don't think
heard
that's
black
true.
people don't like Elvis because of how he capitalizes on black music.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But again, the Beatles did it, AC/DC did it, Rolling Stone. Every one of those '60s rock and roll bands capitalized on black music.
Mm.
You can't that the problem. The record executives are the ones you really got to get pissed off at. Because they're the ones that
I
really
think
like.
you could just be pissed off at all of them.
Yeah, no, you're right. I get, but the thing is, they get a pass. Like these record executives keep doing the same shit, and nobody says nothing to them. And they did it up until the '90s.
I
To
mean, look,
black
that
musicians.
I think I look all I'm saying is it was a different time, so I'll acknowledge that, but that doesn't mean they didn't have choices. It's like they could
Yeah.
have done what like Bruno Mars is doing at the very
What?
least.
Be a Filipino Michael Jackson.
Like no, I'm just saying like acknowledge like the like where he's getting the influences from. Like that's all it
Yeah,
really is, like acknowledging the
yeah.
influences.
Elvis acknowledged it all the time.
Yeah,
That's
I
why he started
guess.
singing gospel too. He's like, "This is I
I,
like the Beatles, but I love singing gospel. I grew up in a black church, and that's where I learned how to sing." And
yeah, I don't know. Like I don't feel like that's. I've never seen. I've never seen Elvis like, or even heard of Elvis acknowledging, like, hey, like I wouldn't be anything without these people.
yeah,
And like I'm not, and I don't know if that's. I mean, maybe it's happened, but it's definitely not something that like there are people that I know that would just mess around and they like wouldn't even like they'll talk about rock and roll and talk about Elvis, but won't even like never heard of like Little Richard, which is kind of
yeah.
crazy. Like it's like what do you mean? Like I don't like what? Like eh. So I don't know. Like I've never heard Elvis say that dude's name.
I have.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
You know who didn't say it was Jerry Lee Lewis. He
Oh
didn't
yeah.
say it.
Well,
And he's the one that actually
yeah.
covered his music.
Yeah. So, I did see Oz's comment too about Bret Hart wearing pink.
Yeah.
That's true. Right, and don't forget Cameron. Cameron, Cameron wore pink in the 2000s. He's like, listen. But anyway, okay. Should we? Anything else we want to say before we start getting into some reviews?
No, let's just
Sounds like
go
a no.
into it.
Let's do it.
Comic book
Review.
comic book
Like review.
well, not like that, but like
All right. So Young Justice targets number 1. Jay, why don't you start us off with this, man? Tell us about Young Justice targets and what its deal is.
So it's basically about this girl, Perdita. She is a queen or princess or queen, something like that. And she hires Roy Harper and crew to protect her, but she ends up getting kidnapped. And so Beast Boy and the Outsiders suit up to go and basically suit up to go in and get her from her kidnappers, with the added drama of Beast Boy. It's like his first I think it's like his first mission back on the after his hiatus with from the Outsiders,
Mm-hmm.
and Perdita also being his ex, so he's anxious to go and help her.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that pretty much covers it. Should also mention that this book is actually written by Greg Weisman, who writes and helped create the show, right?
Yeah.
And Christopher Jones does the art and inks, and it's colored by Jason Wright. So this book is in continuity with the actual Young Justice TV show, and I guess picking up seemingly not too long after the events from this last season.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, Moses, what did you think? Like, you didn't actually get a chance to see this last season of Young Justice, right?
Nah, I didn't.
So what
I watched
reading
a
this?
couple episodes, but nothing. I knew Beast Boy had issues with a hiatus and stuff and therapy and all that. So I knew that,
Right.
and this is him being integrated back, I guess.
Hmm.
I read this book after reading the two other books we're going to be reviewing today, and
Okay.
in reading those, I'm like, man, this is why I like independent comics.
Hmm.
And then going to this one, it just felt so bland.
Hmm.
Like, the art spaced out, the dialogue was just run of the mill, and it's not. I don't know if it's actually that. It's how it felt after
Okay.
reading, do a power bomb or even the panic, and the art itself was very a little just pedestrian too. Like it's adequate, but it's nothing super creative and mind blowing. I
Hmm.
think I definitely like I ate something way too savory and then got a piece of bread. Yeah. And then sometimes a piece of bread is good.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
you come home after a night of drinking, like, you know what, I'm just gonna have this piece of bread.
Right.
But it's just it just felt like that. But what I did like was the memory, the little
Hmm.
after, like, I thought it's the same artist. I guess it's a different colorist, and
Hmm.
that little motif, like, that takes place in between the actual story that we saw, like, in a moment, like he's having a memory. I liked that was the interesting part, and that the art was the same art. It was just colored different, and it just looked more dynamic.
Hmm.
They did a terrible thing with this paneling. That's where I was like, man, what's the point of this? Where they did the dialogue between the three bodyguards in the three cars. So there's one, two,
Hmm.
and three, and
Hmm.
then the panels flow like the panel one, the panel representing car one and three are right next to each other. And when you
Hmm.
read it, it looks like they could go together. And then
Hmm.
you read the bottom one, I'm like, oh, I had to read that in between. And it's like, if you could just read them without that second one, like, why even bother? Like, it would have been easier just to just put them all three in one strip, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I know the panel you're talking about, but wait, did you need to be? You weren't. You. It was supposed to happen in that order, wasn't it? Like.
No, the car three was the one that responds to car two, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, hey, that could be the case. I'd have to look
Yeah.
at it again to be
Look, if
certain,
if
but
if there's no clear answer, like, that's bad. Like, they took
no, no, no. It's
a weird
if there's
creative
not a clear
approach with
answer, I
paneling.
would agree with
Yeah,
you. But I don't like I know when I read it because I remember seeing that too, and I mean I thought it was okay. Like it wasn't like it was like it didn't strike me as like, oh, it read wrong, but
right.
but at the
Well,
same
and that's
time I do
because
remember it happening and just kind of being like, that's interesting, I guess. But it there's a part of it that feels a little unnecessary, especially because like the way that the panel was drawn,
yeah,
it felt like there was like a lot of empty space,
yeah,
and so it's kind of like, I don't know if that there was no necessarily, it didn't feel like it was artistic enough to be like, oh man, they're trying to do something different here, you know what I
yeah.
mean? But at the same
Yeah.
time, I don't know that it messed up the dialogue, but maybe it did.
Well, I don't think it really messed up the dialogue, but that's kind of my point. It's like the dialogue is just so bland that
Yeah,
even if
yeah.
you read in that order, it fits, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it to me, it was more like, yeah, I'm like, well, all right. Usually I'm used to these newer television adjacent comics to being a little better. You know, like even the was it the Earth Prime stuff? It's a little it's a little better than the shows, the CW shows. Yeah.
No, wow.
So I'm like, yeah. So I figured from a show of that quality, it's just maybe that's probably why the show is good too, because it's more dynamic and the runtime, the amount of stories they can squeeze in that runtime. And here they're stifled by a page count and a deadline. You know.
Jay, how'd you feel about Young Justice Targets #1? What were your thoughts?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
But I can say a lot of that is probably just residual. Like I'm very deeply invested at this point. So hold on. Sorry.
No problem.
I'm invested. Yeah, like I'm heavily invested in getting these peak character stories. It was also nice to see a version of Stargirl that doesn't absolutely fucking suck. And yeah, like basically, I watched the show and I wanted to know what happens after, and they're giving it to me. Like, this is what happens after. And I'm like, cool. Like, if we could just keep this going to the next season, like, I would be a really happy guy.
And I can definitely see that working out. Like even with the quality of the book, if you're really like invested like that, I can see that. Like you're watching an episode, a between episode or something, you know. And hey, like fans of the show should have that if they want. Yeah, far be it from me to tell them not to. I mean, maybe Clarence Thomas could tell them not to, but.
Just out here, just restricted stuff. Okay, I will say that in regards to this particular issue, I definitely I think lean a little bit closer to your experience, Mo, than Jay's, just because I'm a fan of the show as well, but I don't. Everything about it felt like about this. Like the first part of the story felt pretty bland. Like it really did. And I was like, that's wild, just because like the show is not like that. And it's like and it's like it's Greg Weisman. So it's like Greg Weisman can write. Like I've not only can he write television, but I've read other comics he's written, and it's good stuff too.
Is Gargoyles comics?
I have read the Gargoyles comics, yes. Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So I know it's not like it's like, oh, he doesn't know, like he can write for TV but not for the books. It's like, no, I mean, Greg Weisman's great. And so it's interesting to read this just because, I was like, initially I was definitely like, okay, like this is some interesting setups, and it felt, like the rhythm of the show where it's like, let's pop into these different areas. Because that's what happens. They kind of set up like your ABC story, and then stuff starts expanding. But, honestly, it just didn't feel like any of it really paid off. Like, I understand that, we were guarding Perdita, and, we're trying to make sure, or the ideas were, they're trying to make sure she stays safe. But, the folks attacking, which I guess are Count Vertigo's people, right? That's what it was. Well, that's the whole point. Is the people attacking don't ever they just feel like generic bad guys. Like there's no point where you mess around and you're like, okay, like
even the fight is generic as hell. Like.
Yeah.
I've read X-Men animated series comics. I've read Batman the animated series comics, and they never felt like this.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of
No,
feels like
just
one of those drug awareness comics that they like.
we're sorry, Mr. Weissman. No.
No, I mean,
He
it's not
knows
my
though. He
experience.
knows how
And the
good
thing
he
is, and that's one of the things the show benefits from your ABC stories. The show,
is.
there's literally 4 characters in a time bubble that I don't know. And their conversation's compelling. Like that's my experience
Mm-hmm.
watching that New Gods arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I like this character. I like every one of these characters. They're the bad
Mm-hmm.
guys, and I want to see where this comes to a head.
Yeah.
And the comic didn't have that for me.
Yeah. And then like the initial story just kind of ends.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh. I was just like, oh. And I mean, I know it's a comic book, but I'm just like, I don't know. Like it's like my immediate thought after finishing that main story was like was actually of you, Moses,
Oh.
because I was like, this isn't the good load. Like that's what it felt like. It's like, okay, he's obviously saving stuff for the
For the
next
next
season
season.
of Justice
Yeah.
League. Like, or Young Justice, I'm sorry, the next season of Young Justice. Like, this is the filler stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't want to feel that way because
It felt like an episode of
nothing would have made me
Titan.
happier than to come to this and be like, man, it feels like I'm watching the show again.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you in regards to the thoughts too about the second story. Like I feel like the second story, like I will say this though. I agree with you in regards to like the coloring making the art feel different. But I don't think the art's bad. Like I feel like the art is emulating the television show's art. Like like I feel like
but
they're
it
trying
just
to do a comic book version of the animated show, and I feel like it does that job well. So
it
I
looks like
won't
the
that I
storyboard for
can't
the show.
that could
Yeah.
be it could, except that I think the show generally would be better. Like I was just
Well,
happy Clayface showed up.
yeah.
Because if that was, which I'm like, if that whole thing didn't go down with Clayface, then I would totally just be like, this is all like not worthwhile. Like before Clayface showed up, I feel like the most interesting thing that happened was the dudes in the prison talking. Like before the jailbreak. Like I was like, before the jailbreak was more interesting than after the jailbreak. I was like, why? I was like, I want to hear Count Vertigo talk down to this dude because he's a peasant. Like, I'm ready for that. Like, that's what I'm looking for. No, So I don't know. Jay, how do you feel about the art?
Oh, I like it. Like it looks good. We're doing 2 other books, and they're both like indie books, and they have indie art styles, which I get tired of sometimes. And so it's good to see like nice, clean, consistent artwork in a book. Like I enjoy that.
Right. Yeah. No, and I could definitely understand that. And also too, like, I mean, it's interesting because I know that especially like for those of us that grew up maybe in a particular era, that like depending what era you grew up in, there's a certain kind of style of art that you kind of associate with superhero comics. And I kind of feel like yeah, and it's not like necessarily one style, but it's like I feel like this art falls squarely in the category of like, okay, that looks like superhero comic book art. Like you could tell it was in a superhero comic book even when people weren't in costumes. Like when you have the dudes, the security detail standing around in their suits outside the car, I can look at those guys and be like, those are all superheroes. I'm not a huge DC guy, so it's not like I looked at them and was like, oh, I know exactly who all those people are, because they all look they don't look the same, but there's a certain
What?
sense of uniformity, which is
There is a
why
sense
people
of
do that.
uniformity.
Yeah,
I
and
was like,
so
when
it's
he
like
said I was a Cadmus clone, I'm like, are you sure all three of those motherfuckers went?
right. It's like so they only hire redheads, huh? Only
Yeah,
redheads. Okay.
gingers.
I'm like, that's fair, I guess. I don't know. It feels like it'd be harder. But yeah. So, but yeah. So I mean, I guess I have to say, I was actually disappointed in the first part of the story. I liked the second part better. Mo, it sounds like you liked the second part better as well.
Yeah, that was more interesting, and that's something. I mean, is in the show, did they explore a lot of that Roy Harper stuff?
What would you say, Jay?
Not this season, but
Yeah, in the
last
past, right?
season they did.
Like the second. Okay, I might go watch that because that was interesting to me. And I want to watch this season. I want to watch all of it. I actually started watching it on the treadmill, but then I just stopped using the treadmill. So
there it is. See, got to mess around and get into superhero shape.
yeah. No, that just means I have to get up a half hour earlier, but it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get there.
right.
But yeah, I started doing that, and yeah, I think I want to go back to it. I know my brother is watching it, so but he just jumped on this last season, and he just loves it. Like he doesn't know.
Oh, he didn't watch any of the stuff before.
Nah, he just watched that, and he's like,
dude,
he loves.
Don't get me wrong, you could do that.
Yeah,
but it's so much better if you start from the beginning.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of
crazy. He's planning to, but he just turned on this season and then got sucked in, and he's like, I'm just gonna watch this first, And the way they set up with the arcs, and like how we were explaining a couple weeks back, like that helped him get sucked in because he could just watch one arc and then go back instead of continuing the next arc, But then he accidentally continued the next arc. And then
so Jay, how did you feel about the backup story?
I liked it. Like it didn't none of these stories gives a lot, but it felt to me like the first 5 minutes of an episode where they're just getting you like the elements before they start fleshing them out and weaving them together. Like, yeah, if this was a 22-minute episode, then yeah, there's like nothing here. But if it's like the first 5 minutes of an episode,
right,
like I'm getting hyped. So
right,
that was like kind of how I felt reading it, where it's like, yeah, it's like, the pacing for a 22-minute episode and the pacing for a comic are gonna be different.
Right.
So it's like that was like in my head when I was reading it. And so yeah, like it does feel like the first 5 minutes of an episode where they're just laying shit out, and eventually they'll start fleshing out, weaving together. And yeah, I have nothing but utter confidence in Greg Weisman to do something fantastic with this book.
With Jay, I'm not sure if I have utter confidence like that, but I'll definitely give him the benefit of the doubt before anybody else.
Oh yeah,
that's my next question. I know it's an easy answer for you, Jay, but Larry, like, would you read the next issue based on what you read here?
I mean, if you're talking about based on what I read here,
yeah,
not on what I read. I would base it on like you all said, like Weisman's reputation,
okay,
and or even the reputation of the show. Like say I wasn't as familiar with Greg Weisman, but I'm just like, well, hey, Young Justice is usually good. I might keep reading on that, or I might keep reading on his reputation, which would actually be the reason why I would actually I'm like, let me try two, just to see, But the reality is, from my perspective, it's like if I read issue 2 and it feels like the same, I have no problem like just not reading anymore and waiting for the next season. Because I'm like, I know the show was gonna be good, so it's like, and I'm just like, hey, like the man is out here working hard to make all this other stuff happen. Like I'm not gonna knock him because but the comics weren't good though. It's like, listen, at this point, it's like if he's trying to keep all these plates in the air, and the one that drops is the comic that's like the bridge to the next season of the show. It's like I'm okay with that. Like let's let that fall to the wayside and focus on making sure that this next season of the show is good. So yeah, I don't have any problem with it.
I almost wish he had maybe put the, because it's not. I don't know what the credit is for writers, but I'm sure there's a team in the writers' room. Like even at the very least, they have assistants. So you give one of these guys a shot to get a little creative with it. Just lay out a plan and they handle the execution. Kind of like Stan Lee back in the day. He was a plotter, and then everybody. I think that we could get some fresh talent in, and maybe something. But for me, I would read I give the second issue a shot. I think this first issue was a little weird for me, but I think overall the full story that I would want to get, I think is something I would want to read. Just based on the reputation of the show, like you said, Larry, and even here, it just felt like standard, uncreative, like just run of the mill stuff. But so look, when you grow up reading Archie or one of these comics, or even Action Comics in the 90s, Plastic Man in the 90s and 80s, like that's what you're getting, and I enjoyed reading those. I'm not gonna say I didn't. So this is like, I'm not gonna act all sophisticated now. I like the cartoon to a certain degree, and I would check this out further.
There it is. So should we go ahead and give this some ratings then?
Yes.
Okay, Jay, let's start with you, man. What would you rate Young Justice Targets #1?
5 out of 5. No notes.
No notes. There it is. Jay's like, 1 note. Keep it up. Moses Magnum, what would you rate Young Justice Targets #1?
That Roy Harper memory backup story gives it a full point. So it's a 3 for me.
There it is. There it is. Yeah, no, absolutely. As for myself, I would also give it a 3. And I think it's just more so like that very well might just be on the strength of like the reputation, like, because I felt like there's a part of me that does feel like, okay, if I had read this and it wasn't connected to a show I liked or written by somebody that I know is a good writer, then I might feel different about it, but maybe not. Maybe I would still give it like a 3 still. I don't know. I just, I will say that if this was the first 5 minutes of a Young Justice episode, then I think I would be in the same space that Jay's in, where it's like, that would be but I do feel like, and I could be wrong here, because Lord knows I don't make television, but I feel like this is too much stuff to happen in the first 5 minutes. Like I feel like it would definitely, like, this is definitely going to be like at least 10 minutes worth of show, at least, but it's probably more than that. And it's like, and I feel like a lot more than this usually happens in the first 10 minutes of
I think they could cut it down to 8 minutes. Like everything, and then you get the title screen at 8, like, oh shit, all this happened and we just got the credits, because that happens in Young Justice sometimes.
It does. 100%. 100%. I felt like there was like maybe like 2 episodes back to back I watched like that. I was like, golly, we just get Young Justice title card. I'm like, damn. I thought we were about to end. I was like, dude, I'm out here tense.
Like they'll give you like an 8, A storyline and B storyline. Usually, B
Mhm.
storylines are separated by the credits. Yeah, but
Mhm.
they'll give you the A and the B and maybe tease the C, and then boom,
Yeah.
Young Justice.
Yeah. Absolute, man. They make it happen on that show, man. It's good stuff. I can't recommend people watch that show enough. So, if you happen to have HBO Max, go mess with it.
I
Watch it from
haven't
the
watched
beginning. You won't
nearly
be
enough.
disappointed.
I would say
Say
watch
again?
it. I haven't watched nearly enough as I should, and I say watch it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, I mean, I just say watch it. Like, you can watch any season on its own, like that. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like the seasons do feel like they're self-contained like that. But
Mhm.
you'll get so much more out of it if you watch from the beginning. Especially, like, I could only imagine what it would be like binge watching that joint, because
You know,
I feel like there's so many like little callbacks, and like some of
yeah,
them are like storyline stuff, but a lot of them are just like, it's almost like how you do in life, where you have like inside jokes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you like, these people are a family. They've come up together, and like literally grew up together, and so they have like little in things that they say and do with each other, and
Right.
the show doesn't explain it to you. It's just kind of like, okay, you just had to have been there.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
when
really
when they
like.
fixed Superboy, and he was like, "Yeah, feeling the Aster." It's like,
Feeling the Aster.
I
It's
think that
good
was one of
stuff.
our titles back in the day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
I
was.
think that was
Yeah,
our
it's
the
so cool.
thing for Comic Con. Oh, we're feeling the Aster because we're hungover. Um, and that's one of the things the show really does well is showing how these characters have grown from like the Cartoon
Mhm,
Network days to now, and
mhm,
it really does a better job because there it, genre wise it's for essentially a young adult demographic, and
mhm,
when you look at a young adult show like your Riverdales and all these, Young Justice is a way better quality show than any of those.
mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
animated,
no
you
question.
know. And
Yeah,
I wish some of the CW DC stuff was as like deep
yeah,
and high quality as that show,
yeah.
and that's kind of why like I kind of was harder on this book too because you should know
Mhm.
better. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
that's what you
absolutely.
get for being good. You get
Yeah.
no leniency and no quarter. Yeah.
And here, right, right. But the other part too, and this is something that I do feel like I would be mad at myself if I didn't actually like acknowledge it, is the show itself got the opportunity to grow based on like the way that it's the trajectory of the show has
Mhm.
gone, in the same sense, like how it was on network television, and when everybody was young, like all the characters were young,
Yeah.
they did things in a less mature way
Yeah.
because they're children,
Right.
and that fit with the format that the the show was put out on,
Right.
as far as like the network and all that kind of stuff. And then
Yeah.
the show did get canceled, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, or yeah, it got, I think, or maybe just not
not
picked up for another season, or I don't know.
right. They never said canceled. They just never
Like
said
hiatus.
it's not getting another season.
Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
get renewed, I guess, maybe is the
Right.
better way. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the same thing, but either way, with them being able to transition over to streaming and being on a platform that allowed them to be subscription based, where they could do things differently than on network
Mhm.
television, that allowed the characters to mature more and to have for them to approach stories in a different way that
Yeah.
coincided with the timing of the characters getting older as well.
Mhm.
Which, and I mean, I say that like, oh, luckily it happened, when it very well might have been by design from Greg Weisman. I don't know. I'm not here to say the guy does it like
Yeah.
it was a happy accident. It very well, I'm sure, was planned like that. But I'm just saying that they were able to um, tackle more mature content at the same time as the characters were becoming more mature, and
Hey,
so that that lends itself to the way, the types of stories and how good the stories can be. And then keeping in mind again that with us talking about this comic, this is a whole completely different format. Like this is not a mature rated book.
Right.
This is a Young Justice comic book, and yes, those characters are at a particular place on HBO Max, but they may not be able to express themselves in this, or we're not even maybe. We know they can't express themselves in the same way in a Young Justice comic book. In that's just a regular book. That's not like in a Max kind of format. So
Black Label.
I don't know. You can get away. In general, you can get away with more in comics than you can on TV.
Yeah, you got to get creative with it. You got to get a little creative with it, but I don't think this book even. Well, look, I don't think they did enough to really try. Like, I don't think.
I don't feel like they
didn't
tried
even
either.
write a story where they would even have to face that obstacle. One of the big examples, and it actually made me look at Young Justice, the TV show, a little different, was my niece, because she was like 12 when Young Justice came out, and she was a big fan of it. Then it got canceled, and eventually came back, but she kind of grew in those gaps of time, and she's like the age of the characters in there is like her same age, and so she grew alongside with them. And she's, I mean, I assume she's having to. I don't talk to my niece, but but I talked to her about Doctor Strange recently, Multiverse Med, but I got to talk to her about Young Justice because I remember when that new season first came back, and she's like, I've been waiting so long, and I'm like, really? But she's like, no, it was so good, and, but she's the age, like, she's watching people like her on screen, and me, I'm old. I was already old as fuck when it came out. So, so it's like, of course, I'm not gonna like the Cartoon Network one as much as I would like the HBO Max one,
Right.
So it's like she got to watch that first HBO Max season, and I gotta film her talking about the new season. Larry, make a production note.
I will do it. It's like a cost your need about comics.
Yeah.
Done. All right. We should go ahead and let's move on to are we gonna do the Panic next, correct?
Let's do the Panic.
The Panic. So the Panic is a Comixology original book, and it's about people basically in a subway car that gets something happens to it, and everybody in the subway, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in the subway get banged around, killed, and the car gets stuck, which I don't know. I don't remember the name of the line, but it's basically the line that goes under the
Hudson River.
The Hudson River. Thank you. I was about to say, like, damn it. Like, so they're stuck underground in basically like in between stations under the river. And hilarity ensues. No, I'm joking. It's not hilarity. It's not hilarity. It gets really bad, and it's about what happens. Like it's about what happens when people get stuck together and how it is they cope with being trapped when they don't know what's going on. So we're going to be talking about issues 1 and 2. There will be some spoilers. So if you all, if somebody's if that it sounds like it interests you, just giving you a heads up, there might be some light spoilers, but Jay, what did you think of the Panic?
It's such a similar premise to Dragonhead, which we've talked about on the show. I think we did a review on the show.
I don't remember what Dragonhead is, Jay. So tell the people in case they don't remember either.
Basically, a bunch of high schoolers are on a subway, and there's an explosion. It derails it. Almost everyone is dead. and you have like 3 survivors, and they're trying to find their way out of the subway
Got it.
and like get back to like civilization.
That does sound like a similar premise. Yes.
Right. And it was so good, and I enjoyed it so much. And this is not as much.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's me or if it's the writer. This is his first attempt at actual horror. This is Neil. I don't remember his last name.
Clyde. Yeah, Neil Clyde. And the art and colorist is Andrea Muddy.
Yeah.
Or
Mookie.
Muddy or Muty.
This
Mookie.
actually might be my first Neil Clyde book. Like, he's done stuff for Marvel and DC, but I don't think I've ever come across him. Like, I think the closest I would have come is he did X-Men Unlimited number 14, but I don't think I actually ran across that one. So yeah, this is my first Neil Clyde and his first attempt at horror, and I'm not exactly feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is because the superiority of Dragonhead. And part of it is, I'm not sure, it just feels a tiny bit off. And that's good and bad, because the cannibal is hilarious. Like, I found her absolutely fucking like laughing my ass off. And yeah, she was great. And it's odd, but it's like on the great side of odd. But then you have like the other side of odd, where the way they break up the story is just feels off. And yeah, like there are another few things on the offside of, on like the bad side of off. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not terrible. Like, there's definitely potential. I'm not saying I'm not gonna read number 3. Like, I probably will, just to see where it goes. I mean, we're already halfway through, so might as well keep going.
How many issues is it, Jay?
I believe it's gonna be 5.
Oh, okay. So I hear you. Yeah, you're saying like you're this far in. So okay, I got you. Moses, what were your thoughts on the Panic?
For me, I enjoyed it a lot. Part of it was how kind of close to the world we live today. With in this post-COVID thing, where you're kind of trying to do what you got to do in your daily life, but you have to take into consideration some precautions, if any, or choose to not. I'm not gonna say like, me, I'm out there wearing my mask or anything, but choosing not to, you're at risk. And the fact is that, like, this book kind of highlights that there's always a risk of something. Every moment that you're, and I always, this book is like, I always have an answer whenever I hear a horrible news story about like a travel incident or a mass shooting at a supermarket, and I'm like, this is why I don't leave my fucking house.
Yeah.
So I always say that. That's
ironically enough, like a train just derailed, like just the other day.
Exactly. And it's like, I used to pray for that when I hated my job, and it never happened. So there goes, thoughts and prayers don't work. But yeah, so this book kind of felt a little real for me because of that, these feelings I've had, and going out into the world in this time. And yeah, I don't really know what's going on here in terms of the horror. Like, I know getting locked in, but
Right.
like I guess it's scary to be stuck under the Hudson. But I watched Daylight, and Stallone did a good job of getting out of there. You know, um, and so I don't, the cat, like Joe said, the cannibal, like, I don't need, how long were they there up until that point? Because
Hey, not long enough.
yeah, it's like I got hungry and she's just eating people. I'm like, dude, like, the
Yeah.
fuck? I'm like,
Nah.
I know in that situation I'd be a little different. I'd probably kill some of the survivors. That like if I see a cannibal, yeah, I'm killing you. Like, don't look at me for fucking prime rib, bitch. But 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 as far as the books, like, I like the dialogue, I like the characters, I like the political ideology is a big thing right now. So having a
Mm-hmm.
character with a MAGA hat and people react to it in this situation, it
Mm-hmm.
is, you're in a situation where you're just people and we're there with each other, whether you like each other or have preconceived notions of each other or not. I like that, but I do feel this book, it's not about that. So they put that in there just for its value in that moment, but not. I don't know how much they're going to explore. And it doesn't seem like they're going to explore too much. And that's where I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, that was a cool thought. You could have done more.
Mm-hmm.
Night of the Living Dead is one of the big prime examples of that, where they're locked in the house with zombies outside, and one of the dudes, the leader of the group, that the reluctant leader, is a black man in the time, before the civil rights movement, and he's like, well, what the fuck, you guys gonna listen to me or what, and people just dismiss him or whatever, and then when he steps out at the end, the police are like, oh, a zombie, and they just shoot his ass. Yeah. Yeah, it's a commentary, and
Mm-hmm.
this one, like, feels like it's kind of going to the commentary, but it doesn't want to rock the boat. And so the experience itself of reading the book, I enjoyed. It's well done. I like the art, the indie art. Like Joe says, he gets tired of it, but for me, I love this. I love the texture of the griminess of the subway after this disaster. Looks really good to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I don't know if you've ever been on one of these D train, L train.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time there's a dude shitting on a seat next to you. so
I
so
feel like
don't,
that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I feel where you're coming from.
no, man, no, like, literally, this guy just stood up, and was like moving all weird, touching his gut, and another dude in the suit just says, "Don't do it, man, don't do it," and then he just takes off his pants and just shits right there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it's it's what it is. The New York transit system. I was there as a tourist for about 4 days, so and that's one of the things I saw.
Damn.
So, I wish
That
I was a
sucks.
photographer back then, but
Oh.
well, that's just one of that's just how that shit is. So the griminess that they're in before the disaster looks good in the art, and then after, it just gets exemplified more. So overall, I enjoyed the book. It has its little shortcomings, but that's just that's the luck of the draw with these indie books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because like the book itself, I was reading the afterword and for issue 1, and it said Clyde said he had this story in his head for a while, like basically since like right after 9/11,
Mm-hmm.
and like was slowly like kind of developing it over time, and and I feel like, well, I'll say this: the first thing is, I don't know that I don't feel like this book can be called a horror book. Like, and I can totally understand the idea of like, okay, well, it would be a scary situation, and there would be people that would be like, like there would be real dread if you were in this situation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the same thing as like horror, because it's like, I feel like for something to be considered a part of the horror genre, it has to like scare the person that's watching it.
Yeah.
like it's not like, like if
Hold on,
I'm
let me write that down because I never had that thought ever.
well, I'm just saying, like, it's almost like the thought process here was like, oh, it's horror because the people in it are scared, in the story. And it's like, if I'm being chased by assassins, in that would be scary for me. But if I'm watching somebody be chased by assassins, that's like an action movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not a horror movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm like, I feel like this doesn't feel like it qualifies, even with the people die in this book because they're in a train wreck basically.
Yeah.
And so like there's gore, and I feel like even if I was watching that in like say a format that wasn't comics, because I can handle gore much easier in comics than I can in like say television or film.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't think of this as horror. It would just be, a gory drama. Like in the same way, like how like there's some episodes of House that I'm like, ugh. but I'm not like, oh, this is horror. That's why I hate this horror TV show.
Yeah.
Actually,
Then,
if I can
what you say,
aside,
Jay?
if I can aside for just a quick
Yeah.
minute, I was actually going to ask you if you were okay, like watching the Herogasm episode of The Boys.
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh.
look,
Because
and that's what
I tell you, I thought of you when I'm like, there's one scene, and I'm like, oh my God, is Larry okay? Like,
no, listen,
yeah, like I was concerned for you, like,
dude. I'm sitting here like I'm gonna watch it, but like I read The Boys, so like I know what is possible. And then on top of that, like even just watching this season, like I feel like every season it ups a notch with the over the topness of stuff. And I was just like, dude, I don't know, man. Like it's been wild. It's been wild. So I know that the Herogasm, because like that was like a seminal moment in the book. So I'm just like, ugh. We'll see what happens, man. Let me put it like this. I'll let you know.
Well,
I'll
hopefully
mark myself safe.
Hopefully you'll let our YouTube viewers know by shooting a reaction video to the Herogasm. When did that come out?
I could do that. It came out this past
Okay.
Friday, right?
No, that means you got to do it ASAP.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You got the camera. You can plug in the microphone to it.
Yeah. I guess I can try to do it like I did the last one. I guess, or no, I got the other camera. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I can make that happen. But I just like this book. Like, yeah, it's interesting because I feel like my thought on it is definitely somewhere in between both of your opinions, I think, just because I feel like, like I like the characters and I thought the setup was interesting. But there is some kind of issues with the execution of things. And that's all aside from the label of horror book. You know what I'm saying? Like, because, I don't care if you want to call this a horror book, you can do it. I think that's wrong. but I'm not going to mess around and be like, knock it because, I needed to be scared because I don't want to be scared in the first place. So it's like I'm okay with a horror book that's not going to actually frighten me. That's okay. But what I will say is like, like I feel like the big thing with this book was the ending of, especially when you talk about the first book. Like the ending of the first book, it literally like you thought Young Justice just kind of stops. It's like this joint is just like, why are we ending right here?
That's actually one of my big criticisms of it's not even a review of the book, so I didn't want to like put it in when I talked about the book, but this is a good time to throw it in. When I search for this book, it's Comixology Unlimited. It gives me the Panic, and it gives me everything that has Panic in it. And then for this particular book, it gives me the trade paperback, which isn't out yet. So it's trying to give it to me as a pre-order for the full thing, but they don't even have a thumbnail, so it's just a black screen. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, so then you have to do the extra step to hit click books in the series, and then you get the thumbnails. I'm like, you know what? Just have every fucking thumbnail ready. Like, you know, Larry and Joe, I thank you guys for being part of my life. Because I'm hard of you motherfuckers for how we produce the show and how it looks in our avatars, in our Discord, in our thumbnails, and you know, they need someone like me over at fucking Comixology, because this whole fucking Comixology Unlimited and Image Not Ready Yet shit, when you're pushing the trade paperback for it, fuck that. You want to make fucking money, or you don't want to make fucking money. Have a fucking thumbnail ready. Have 5 covers for the arc and a 6th one for the trade paperback before you even launch the fucking book.
Hey, that makes sense to me.
If that's how you want to do business, fucking do it right. I want to give you my fucking money. Make me feel good about giving the fucking money. I'm not going to give money to no fucking blank thumbnail shit. It fucking pissed me off, Jay. It pissed me off. I looked for the Panic, and it gave me a bunch of blank pages. I say Jay because you suggested the book, but it had nothing to do with how they presented it to me.
I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, Mo, but you know, I think I have to. Jay's the one that took all of the images out of the Comixology database. Like he's literally the one, and I don't know why. He's just a bastard. No.
This is one of the big parts of Comixology being fucked by Amazon, and you know, Bezos got tired of fucking his Lauren Sanchez, and he's like, hey, you know what? Let me fuck Comixology now.
Well, I guess so, right?
So, and that's I love Comixology Unlimited as a service. I love it. I love I like reading random the originals too. You know, so it's a good service, and it was a better app. And now I'm finally feeling this Amazon bullshit. And they released a series of stories in posting stories talking about how they're going to be fixing. And I just told them, I'm like, well, if you really want to fix it, why don't you just do what you were doing before and make it easier to buy on an Apple device? You know, because that's really it. Like you want to make it.
Buying is so goddamn inconvenient.
Right.
Like I'm searching, like I'll just want something or feel like looking for something, and it's like, okay, I found it. Now I gotta exit and go to the website, which isn't even Comixology, it's like Amazon. So when you're like trying to type something in, it's giving you like from the entire Amazon catalog. And it's like, no, I just want comics. Like
it reminds me of like big business and government and the mob. The mob knows how to hustle to do what it needs to do, and big government and big business does the same exact thing on a bigger scale, but forgot its roots in the hustle. You know, and that's how I feel about Comixology, where it's like me as a small business, everybody's like, hey man, do you take a Cash App? Do you take Venmo? Do you have a Zelle? Do you have? I go, I have every possible way to take your money. I have it. I said, and I go, I just want you to give it to me the way that it's most convenient to you. I did the hard work of cutting your hair. Now you give me your money the way you feel most comfortable doing it. That's my model. So I'll pay the fees. I don't give a shit. They're tax deductible anyway. So it's not. I make it easy for the customer to give me their fucking money, and that's Jeff Bezos, Comixology. I keep giving you my fucking money, and you're making it harder and harder. Make it easy to give you my fucking money.
Hey, sounds fair to me. Make it easy to give you my money.
Fucking money, Larry. Fucking money.
Oh, I'm sorry. There it is.
Yeah.
That is more
don't
money.
misquote
You're
me,
right.
Larry.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't like the end of the first issue, and also I will say that in the afterward, I did see that like Clyde, like there was a point where he was thinking about, or I think he said he started this as a novel first, and then made it into a comic.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that could be part of the thing. Like I know, like apparently he's done a fair amount of novelizations for comics, and so I that might be part of what's happening here, where it's like a little bit of, maybe things aren't getting, like the transition from one genre to the other isn't quite happening as smoothly as as people would like, or as maybe we would like. I don't know, because I feel like the elements are all here. Like it feels like a really interesting and good book, but I don't know if it quite executes to the point where it becomes like really good. It's decent. It's decent. Like, like even issue 2, I feel like issue 2 was better. Especially like, I don't know. I guess they were like, I don't know. I don't know. What do you all think? Like, did you all like issue 2 better than issue 1?
It moves the story
It was
along.
funnier.
Yeah.
Look, the whole cannibal situation, which for me, I'm like, and I don't know if it was like a thing where I know the copy I read, the cannibals like literally on the cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really feel like that should have been something you save for people to discover in the book. Like, like that felt like a shame to me. Because how much better of a moment would that have been if you just like turned the page and you're like, what is happening here? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, I know that that's something that could potentially happen because it's on the cover of the book. And I get it. Like, you got to sell books,
Yeah.
But
well, they don't have to.
Well, that's true too.
Have to sell you the unlimited service because this is
You're right.
original. So
they
don't have to. It's like you're blaming somebody for the thumbnail for the Netflix series. Like they change the thumbnail every week, depending on how far you've watched.
Right.
So
right.
That's how I think that's the problem with Comixology. The dude that started HBO Go is the dude that did the Comixology, and they got rid of him.
Oh yeah, man. And I'm just like it would have been a better moment, but also too, it was like, I mean, I agree. Like issue 2, I found that whole kind of thing interesting, but at the same time, I just was like this is wild because it's like getting stuck under a river in a subway tunnel with a whole bunch of people dead around you is way traumatic. And that woman is stuck in that car alone. But it's like, dude, like you, like no one's been in here this long. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like, this makes me feel like if somebody fell asleep, you might have started trying to eat them too. You know what I'm saying? Like on the train, if the train just had kept going. So I'm like, this is just one step above what Moses was talking about with the guy that just, messes around and defecates right in the seat. It's like, okay, well, sometimes a New Yorker will bite you. And it's like, no, it's not bath salts. It's not zombie virus. You know,
Yeah.
she was hungry. She was like, damn, I'm pecking.
Like she literally said, I was here and I got hungry.
Right. Right.
Like,
and it's like, dude, no one's been here long enough for that. Just start eating people.
and that's what was missing of that Stallone movie Daylight was the cannibalism. Joe, I know you saw that.
Right.
I probably did. I don't really remember it though.
Yeah. See, that was a real horror movie because it got flooded too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I guess that's the other thing too, where it's like this issue 2 is not scary either. It's just weird. It's not even weird. It's just like, I mean, I guess realistically, it's just like, you know, like, and I guess that's the whole thing where it's like when I read this, I did not know it was supposed to be a horror comic. So I wasn't judging it on that. Like, I'm judging it just on just the circumstances where it's like, huh, like, okay, you know, like, I don't know. It's like, it just feels like, I mean, Jay, you said off or used the word off.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what it is. Like, so there's something like there's just a little off, and not so much so that I'm like, oh, I dislike it. Because like, I think I'm with Jay. I think I'll read the 3rd issue too. However, it's like I can read just after reading just the 1st issue. I'm like, this could be a way better book. Like this could easily be like an epic book that you're like, dude, you have to read The Panic. You know, and they need to make it into a movie, and then after they make it a movie, they need to remake it as a television show. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it could totally be that. Like, the potential feels like it's there for it, but it's not based on this comic. Like, you know, like I could totally see somebody else reading it and being like, well, why do you feel that? So I don't know.
So should we rate this?
We have to, right?
Yeah.
It's in our contract. We have to.
We don't get paid.
Comicsology is like, oh, you want that money, right? No.
we let you tell us to go fuck ourselves, but you have to rate
it. right. So let's start with you, Moses. What would you rate The Panic? Comicsology original, The Panic.
With all its faults, I did enjoy reading it. The characters and their personalities, they were all distinct and they had a good voice, a distinct voice among each other. And that's kind of where, like how you said there, like if this was better, like you could see it being a TV show or something like that, because it does do a good job at that. So for me, it's a 4.
Okay, Jay, how about you? The Panic.
I'm gonna give it a 3. It's a little off, but it did remind me of Dragonhead, so that was cool.
And Daylight.
That was Stallone in the MAGA hat.
I think he would wear a MAGA hat.
I don't know.
Italians think they're white now.
Like,
say what?
Italians think they're white now.
Oh, got it.
Like, I'm curious to see where this goes. And I'm curious. It's off, but I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah, as for myself, I would give it 3.5. I feel like, you know, like I totally believe that this book could actually like come around. Like like this book could end up with like 2.5 solid issues at the end of it, and maybe, you know, the writer just like was feeling out the process of it, of delivering the story. Like, I could see that, but as of right now, like, yeah, it's hard for me to give it anything higher than 3.5, just because, yeah, it's just slightly off, but it's an interesting concept, and I think that, you know, there are people that will appreciate it. Like, I did like the art too. I know I didn't mention the art much because I was so kind of caught up in the structure but I felt the same way you did, Mo, where it's like I liked the grittiness of it, and it felt like it was a good like I felt like it had a vibe to it, and this particular indie art felt like it very much fit the story that was trying to be told, and so that I can appreciate as well. But yeah, something about the execution just didn't sit well in regards to the story structure and stuff. But yeah. All right. We got one more book that we're going to talk about here, and that is from Image Comics, Do a Powerbomb. Moses Magnum, why don't you tell us about this?
Do a Powerbomb. I discovered this book on Instagram. I followed Daniel Warren Art. I think it's at Daniel Warren Art on Instagram, and he I just seen him do art like for the last 5 years. And I love his art. I love his style. I love what he does. And he'll do like a Spawn one or Spider-Man, whatever he feels like every day. And he sells commissions. He sells stuff in Artist Alley and stuff. This book was a book he's been working on for about a year and a half or two, probably before pandemic he started on. I don't know if it was a Kickstarter. It might have been, and that was before I was getting high and going on Kickstarter. So I might, if it was a Kickstarter, I didn't fund it. But it's now on Image, and it's basically the story of a young kid whose mom dies in the ring, like draws.
Wrestling ring.
Yeah, a wrestling ring. Yeah, like draws almost did. That reminded me of like that D'Lo Brown Draws fight from back in the day, where I was like, "Fuck, fucking Draws is paralyzed now," And I watched the Blue Blazer die in the ring, and I remember thinking about, they cut all the kayfabe when the Blue Blazer died, and Mick Foley came out and people came out to talk about him. They tributed him on Raw, and I was like, they cut all. I knew wrestling was fake, but some of those rivalries were really like they felt real. But when they came out and just like Owen was this, my kids did that with him, and the kids grew up together, like all that shit. Like it really like made me feel something more than I had felt from being an Owen Hart fan and a Blue Blazer fan. I love the whole, I love comics, so the whole superhero thing between Owen Hart and Blue Blazer to me was fucking tight. But and in this book, it kind of does that too, where it's like the Steel Rose is a high pedigree wrestler, and then there's just a slip up in the ring, and she dies, and her kid grows up and wants to be a wrestler, and ends up getting the dad's like, nah, don't do it. That's the only interaction she has with her dad is him telling her not to be a wrestler. And then she gets called into this type of Mortal Kombat-esque, it seems paradimensional tournament, wrestling tournament. And that's the end of the book, and I'm like, oh shit. This went a whole other way too. Like I didn't know, in seeing Daniel Warren give me teasers and shit on Instagram, I knew more or less what it was about, but I knew it through the art, not the actual story. And in watching the story and watching all these years of updates on my feed kind of come together was really gratifying. And that's one of my, I always think about the future. Oh, the medical advancements and these things. Fuck that. I like seeing these artists' visions come to fruition. That's what I care about, the future. I don't care about flying cars. I don't care about less emissions or protecting electric cars and flying cars. Fuck that. I want. I like seeing the process of these artists. That's what I like about living in the future. And reading this, it just really like it watching this story unfold in this book. It just went a whole other way, that as much as I saw of it, I didn't see this coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that for me made it a perfect first issue. Like one of the most perfect first issue I've ever read in my life.
Jay, how'd you feel about Dual Powerbomb #1?
Well, it made me nostalgic for when I used to read LA Weekly. The art style is very reminiscent of a lot of their comic strips that were in the back of those. And then it was a broken neck and a demon. So just, yeah, like, it's cool.
I love it, Jay. Listen. I like. We should have had you do the recap. LA Weekly art, broken neck. Then there was a demon.
Well,
I don't know what more you're looking for.
Dude, you know, the dude that wrote and drew Truth. That he used to do comic strips back on the back of those back in the day.
Oh, really?
So that's the kind of art style you would get back, especially in the 90s, late 90s,
Yeah.
2000s. That's what you would get.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this book is really interesting because, like, as a person who, you know, that watched wrestling in the 90s and then kind of you know, like fell away from it, it's like it was interesting to see like this kind of brought back to life in comic form, or I won't say brought back to life because not like wrestling doesn't happen now. You know, I don't want to make it seem as if like not only is wrestling happening, but I've heard that there's some like amazing talent out there right now, and some amazing, you know, organizations that are out there making it happen in a real way. But it's really interesting because for me, I was like, wow, like this felt to me like it was written, or I should say written or executed all around, because like it's written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. So it's like that by itself is always, you know, when you're talking about writer artists, that's always an impressive kind of thing, just because, you know, it's hard enough to do one or the other and do it well. But here I was like, oh, like the way that, especially in the beginning, how he captures what it's like for somebody to be a pro wrestler in a particular organization, like at the height of their popularity and whatnot. It felt very authentic to me. And of course, like that's what made it all the more tragic when the accident does happen. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, sheesh, man. Like I was like, yeah, it really affected me.
Yeah.
and so I was just like, wow, like that is messed up. And then again, because, you know, most of these books, when you do a issue 1, you have an afterword. I'm reading the afterword and come to find out that, you know, like this dude is not like a lifelong wrestling fan. Yeah. It's like he like watched wrestling back in the day and then, like, you know, like stopped.
Yeah, like us.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like he didn't even like if I'm remembering right, he said he didn't even like see the Attitude Era of wrestling, which I was just like, wow, that's crazy. You know, and was just watching like because he had a baby and had to like watch stuff to stay awake. He started watching wrestling and got kind of hooked on it again. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, like that's really interesting. I feel like that in and of itself made like that was I didn't know that before I read the book, because it was in the afterword. But I feel like that aspect alone,
postword,
the post. Right, the post word.
Just like Young
That-
Justice, we do callback.
that fact alone makes it like interesting enough, just like the whole creative process and energy behind this book. But even without knowing that, it was just like, wow, like this is a really like compelling kind of story on its own. And then you get the twist at the end and you're like, wait, what? Like, 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 wait, so what are we about to do? So I'm just like, I was totally prepared for this joint to just be like very much a like a not, I guess can't say slice of life, but a dramatic story about a young lady trying to like elevate herself to the height of her, like to honor her mother in this particular profession where nobody wants her to do it. But like, and I guess that is going to be part of the story, but apparently it's not going to be all of it, and that would have been enough for me. So I was like, oh wow, like this is going to be pretty interesting. Yeah. Mo, how like, I know you kind of mentioned or talked about it some here, but what were your thoughts on the art again?
Again, the art is just—he's an artist I've followed, I think, maybe since my first few days on Instagram. And
Really, like one of the early. Okay.
he's one of those. So just watching him like work on stuff, work on commissions, live videos, process videos, like I've been a fan through that, and now he has a full-on book that he wrote and drew. I'm like, fuck, I'm in,
Yeah.
Just for me, like I loved every second of it. You mentioned the capturing the feel of the height of a wrestling federation main event, and
Mhm.
you know his art style doesn't go too much into detail with the crowd, but in those scenes, in those panels, you can hear the crowd
But yeah,
as he's reading
absolutely.
it, and it just comes alive. And that's, you read this book, do a power bomb, and then after that, you read that Young Justice book. It's like that shit feels real bland, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. So for me,
You definitely
that's
did that in
part
the
of
wrong
that
order.
hurt. It hurt Young Justice.
Yeah.
It hurt Young Justice a lot, and
Yeah.
but but that's it. This is part of the I love wrestling as a whole, the bravado and the
Yeah.
shit talking and all this, and
Yeah.
that's it. We got books coming out in the same week. Who's gonna do it, brother? Who's gonna put out the best comic this week? And that's
Mhm.
what Power Bomb did. Like, it came up against Young Justice on a review, and it did a fucking power bomb, a D'Lo Brown power bomb, and
Yeah.
destroyed Ross's career, destroyed Chris Weissman's comic career. you know,
Greg Wiseman had to retire. Did they set him out on
yeah,
the stretcher? Is that what
yeah.
you're saying? That's hilarious.
Daniel Warren was like, and then that D'Lo Brown power bomb.
Hilarity. No, I
Andrade
mean, yeah,
Weissman. Yeah,
I
but
I agree with you. Oh, go
but
ahead.
that's how I feel about the art. Like every panel just has a lot of I'm invested in it. I've seen the work that goes into him feeding that kid.
You're
So
right.
and then seeing it just executed well here, I love it. Like every panel is a print worthy, or it should be framed. Yeah,
Right. Right. No, no, and I agree with you. And that's coming. Like, I don't have the same investment you do because,
yeah,
like I'm not as familiar with his work. I know that I've seen his work before because his art style is distinctive. So I
yeah,
know that I've seen it, but it's not like he's not an artist that I look at and I'm just like, you know, or he hasn't been an artist that I've looked at in the past and been like, oh, I need to like make sure I check out what he's doing next. But
yeah,
this sold me. And I feel like, it's really interesting just because I will say that especially a lot of times when you're talking about writer artists, like they usually do one better than the other, and
Yeah.
that can be evident. And we've talked about that on this show before, where it's like somebody like somebody's either like usually a really good artist and they're a little bit weaker on the writing side, or they're a really good writer and they might be a bit weaker on the art side. But like this book is executed like damn near perfect.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it sells itself right from the beginning in regards to like and it was interesting for me because I was like because again I haven't watched wrestling in a long time. I found it really interesting that the match was a man versus a woman,
Yeah.
just like straight up, which I know that they have matches that are mixed matches sometimes. But I usually, I at least in my experience, those are usually like tag matches. I don't know if that's something that has changed in wrestling in modern day. And so I was just like, oh, that's cool. But I mean, I had that thought like maybe just like for a second. And then after that, I was just in the story. And I'm sitting here, I felt like I was in the crowd, like yelling, like, and like, they have like the chants and whatnot. And the dude came out and he was the heel. He's like, cut my music. I was just like, and he messed around and told, right after Home Chick basically told the crowd how much she loves them and how like, how they're all her family and she couldn't be this amazing champion without them. He's like, you all suck. You're all trash and you don't matter. And the only thing that matters is winning. And I'm just like, oh, dude, this feels like a full hill for real. I love it. And I was just like, dude, like it made me mess around and be like, maybe I need to start watching wrestling again. Because
he did mention New Japan, which is that gets a little, it experiments with the entertainment form and gives people what they respond to a lot. So I haven't watched enough to tell you like that's what you should be watching, but Heck isn't on. He's probably working.
I know, right? The one time where you're like actually just talking.
And honestly, I
100%.
I did want to send him a copy, and I wanted him to be part of this conversation, but we'll do it after the fact. Maybe
we can definitely do it another time.
And you have to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to see when that happens. Yeah, I'm gonna exploit Heck for our financial gain, and he's not gonna get any money, but he'll get a free comic book. But so it definitely like I know like AEW, AEW they had the trans wrestler, and they didn't know where to put him. So he was like they had the mixed match, but it was a mixest of the matches. And people were mad, and I'm like, well, like wrestling is fake. Like technically, it could be Keira Knightley fighting against The Rock, and she could still win the belt.
Absolutely.
Like, fake, So
you don't know. You don't underestimate Keira Knightley's suplex. It's very vicious.
I loved on the Ninja Turtles game when I did the suplex.
Yeah.
But and that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I told the dudes. Like don't be mad at the trans in wrestling. Like because they were mad at trans in other fields. But they're like in wrestling too because they're wrestling fans. And I was like, like wrestling, you could have a gopher beat Hulk Hogan.
Right, absolutely. Somebody come out the crowd, right?
Right. That's how we got Barbara Bush.
Right.
She was an EMT, and then she started getting suplex and had those big ass luscious titties. Sorry, babe. Sorry.
Nope, you canceled already. Sorry, Moses. You're done. It's like half of the people listening right now already wrote in. My email box is full. I'm like, damn it.
With two people.
Exactly. I told him. But yeah. So, like it'll be and. In contrast, which I'm pretty sure that for me, like this was the last book I actually read.
Okay.
No, I'm wrong. I read this first. Or no, I read Young Justice first. I read this next, and then I read The Panic.
Okay.
And like getting to the end of this book was a completely different experience than Young Justice, and I felt like definitely emphasized the shortcomings in the Panic as well, where it was just kind of like, like this book left me with a hook, not only that I wasn't even expecting,
Yeah.
but it was just like, wait, I'm not even sure what's about to happen next, but I want to know. Like I want to know. I know that. Like I'm just like it, I might even go so far as to be like, I think I have to know. Like I have to know what's about to happen next because I'm just like, and it was crazy because it's like it spent this whole book basically giving me this story and showing me what I thought the book was going to be about, like giving me backstory, telling me about where this character is right now and the mindset, and basically helping me understand what she's trying to accomplish, and like that how she's like what she's willing to do to get it, and then at the very end just kind of tosses in a curveball here where it's like, wait, so I think we're still going to do that, but we're going to do it maybe in a completely different way than, than at least than I thought was going to be the case, and I'm just like, wow, like, okay, like, let's go, let's see what happens. So I was feeling really good about it. Like it has a lot of strong moments in it. And is this a 22-page book? It's more, right?
I think it's closer to 30. I don't have my I got it digitally, so I don't have my iPad, but it's definitely like I might not be going to Comic-Con, and that's one of the I don't know if Daniel Warren is going, but that's somebody I would definitely want to meet in Artist Alley. So I could a bunch of cash at him and take a bunch of art.
You don't even want anything, you're just gonna throw money.
Yeah, look,
he's gonna be like, please stop, I'm drawing.
Yeah, here. Yeah. Buy that baby a bottle.
Buy that baby a bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, about 30 pages.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jay.
Including,
the post word.
Yeah, the post and the pre stuff.
The post word. So yeah. So okay, well look, we should rate this book. Moses Magnum. Hey, why don't you go ahead? Start us off with
5 out of 5. Yeah.
5 out of 5.
5 out of fair. 5. 5 fucking championship ass belts raised above a ladder. Remember when they started doing that, the ladder match and then The Rock got the belt, and then they did that the crane shot where it it just moved. Like that's how I see every panel here. Like that epic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like even when she's jobbing, it's epic. Yeah. Jay, what about you, friend? How would you rate Do a Powerbomb number 1?
I would give it a 3. Like it's not bad. Like I don't know if I 100% need to keep going, but I probably will.
Okay.
Just to see what the Demon's deal is.
Yeah. Yeah. As for myself, I'd give it a 5 as well. Like I enjoyed it thoroughly, and like it literally, like just like how you mentioned the league that he talked about, that he was like, wow, like I saw, like he was talking about a specific match that kind of hooked him, and now he watches it regularly, and I was like, I want to go watch that match. Like I just want to go see like what did these do, like I like the match that inspired this book. I want to go watch. So yeah, that's how much that this book had compelled me to like move outside of just the comic book space. So I'm like, 5 out of 5.
I know every like 3 months or so I do I watch WWE or AEW, just to see what's going on, and stuff's good, but I just don't have that time, the investment. It used to be a 3-hour live event every week. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like to devote your time 3 hours a week to a live event.
Sounds like crazy talk. No one
Yeah,
does
it's
that.
crazy.
No one
Like,
does that.
I mean, there's only yeah, it's only us that do that, and the 4 people that watch.
There it is. All right. So look, with that said, it looks like it's time to get out of here. Just that quick, man. Look, uh, uh, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say if I was just double checking in my head, like, is there anything else that we're supposed to make sure we talk about? But no, we got it. We got it all.
We got it all. Yeah,
We're good.
turns out
Which leads me to believe that Oz is the problem.
yeah,
Oz is why we
Oz is
don't
the
end on
problem.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. But good stuff. Good stuff. Jay, why don't you go ahead and give us some final thoughts, buddy?
So I've been going back and reading a bunch of older comics that I didn't get around to at the time. And one of those comics is shit.
I love you, Jay.
Thank you. You're
supposed to say I love you too, man. You insensitive.
I love you too.
That didn't sound that genuine, but I'll take
it. Jay's way too classy to lie to you, Moses. No, when I tell him I love him, he does the same thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I understand that with you. You're black.
Okay. So
Jay's not a fan of the blacks.
One of those books is Hank Johnson, Agent of Hydra.
Oh,
and it's fucking amazing. Yeah. I love it so much.
Yeah.
And I recommend it to anyone that is a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And shows like that. It's basically a Hydra agent. Is daily life for a Hydra agent.
Yeah.
Which involves getting kicked in the head by Nick Fury and having his partner shot.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Really good.
Indeed. Yeah, great recommendation, Jay. Moses Magnum, final thoughts.
Jay, I would recommend to you Scud the Disposable Assassin because it's the indie comics version of that.
Yeah.
I think Hank was a ripoff of that. But yeah, who knows? I don't know exactly when each came out, but they're both great. I would say do that. As always, we got merch, we got our Discord, we got our YouTube videos. We're gonna be doing more. Luckily, work's been busy, so I haven't been making anything. But we're here every weekend. So just subscribe, like, hit the bell. Whatever you don't like, let us know. Either way, we'll ignore your shitty comments, but it's funny. We laugh at them when we're smoking weed or drinking. So entertain us while we entertain you.
There it is. And for the entire Fantastic Forum, do what Moses just said. This is Fantastic Forum. We'll be back next week. Good night. Good night.
Sorry, I was buying Scud.
Jay, can you finish the show, Jay?
The following may contain language.
No, he can't. No, he can't.